Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order this Joint Records and Public Safety and Public Service Committee. First thing on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 3 on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adopt, please.
So moved, Hall.
Support, Zenner.
It's moved by Commissioner Hall, supported by Commissioner Zenner. Any additions or corrections on the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Item 4 is the approval of the minutes, Joint Records and Public Safety and Public Services Committee minutes dated July 11th, 2022. Again, I need a motion to approve, please.
So moved, Wallace.
Support Kleinfeld.
It has been moved by Commissioner Wallace, supported by Commissioner Kleinfeld. Any additions or corrections? Hearing and seeing none, please vote. Thank you.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Item 5 is public participation. This is 3 minutes maximum per speaker, and it's only related to the issues on this agenda. The first opportunity for public participation is for those who wish to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on an item which is in today's agenda. The second opportunity for public participation is for those who wish to speak on any issue. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak in public participation? If so, please come up to the podium. I think somebody just walked in. Oh, yes, he doesn't want to speak. Anybody wants to speak going once, twice, 3 times? I'm going to close public participation. Item 6 is Records and Public Safety Department recommendations. Item A is Budget Amendment, Capital Improvement Fund. It's a relocation of court sections file system in the amount of $95,644. We have Clerk Anthony Forlini, Register of Deeds, who's going to speak on this. Before we do it, I'd like a motion to recommend this to full board, which would be 6A and 6B.
So, support Van Sickle.
It's been motioned by Commissioner Farrington, supported by Commissioner Van Sickle. Mr. Forlini, if you would, clerk, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. I think most of you have been by my office and saw the file system that we have in the court building there. And this was a system that was supposed to be replaced. My first year I was in office, and there was never bids or whatnot put together, but there was a capital improvement piece that was approved in the prior group, and for $100,000. So this is we finally put together some. The quotes, and the ideas of what we want to try to accomplish with this. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of all the shelving and the rolling cabinets that are on the first floor. We're going to bring them down to the basement, and the cabinets that are in the basement that are broken actually will be removed, and those files are going to be brought to central storage. Now I did say something that's not quite accurate. We're not bringing the file cabinets down. We're bringing just the files, and they're going to be put into a new system.
Thank you, Mr. Ferlini. I see no speakers. Please vote. Thank you, Mr. Ferlini.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Item C is a contract, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, legal representation by the Macomb County Prosecutor's Attorney, $450,000 revenue. Tanya Getz, Chief Assistant Prosecuting Attorney, Juvenile Division. I need a motion to recommend this to full board.
Support, or move Matuzik.
Support Van Sickle.
It's been moved by Commissioner Matuzik, supported by Commissioner Van Sickle. Prosecuting Attorney, Mr. Lucido.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Unfortunately, Ms. Getz, our chief of the Juvenile Division, had an episode over the weekend where The Juvenile Justice Center came under siege by 3 juveniles who took over an office, and as a result, they had to get the SWAT team from the Sheriff's Department. So not only did the 3 individuals that were locked up in the youth home were locked up because of what they did on the streets, it's now what they're doing inside the juvenile facility. That being said, I'm going to make the presentation. Currently, we have the juvenile division. They are billing MDHHS, and it's unique. It's a way of we can bring revenue back to the county, and as such, we are now expanded that into, if you remember Molly Zapatel, she's been the chief over there for very serious crimes. They are too billing, so we're going to probably bring in a revenue stream. We hoped about $450,000. It has to be approved by the board. That money is going to be kept by the treasurer and hopefully recycled back into the prosecutor's office for some resources that we would use over the time. But we only are currently doing it, and we started with your indulgence, and the contract is up for renewal with the juvenile division, but we've expanded it also to Molly's division, which is, the most vulnerable, and I think it's a great idea. We work hard, and we show the time that we bill on it, and we get reimbursed. Novelty issue. And I'd ask for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Pete, in our notes, it indicates that it's a possible increase of $450,000. Could you explain that, please?
Sure. We just got rolling. If you remember when we came in, I think it was March. I don't know the exact date, but I think it was March when we came to you with this. So we brought in a small amount. It's less than $100,000 right now. Now that we have a juvenile division that has expanded because of the amount of juvenile crimes, plus raised the age, if you remember, that was one of the laws I brought up in Lansing. A juvenile should be charged up to 17. And then at 18, they become an adult. We were one of 3 states that were charging juveniles. At 17, I said, I'm sorry, at up to 16. And at 17, we were charging as adults. Services are afforded to you in the juvenile division. When we expanded and got the okay from MDHHS to go ahead and be billing under our other division, it's wonderful because we already have a division with 6 lawyers in it, which are the baby death cases that we handle, as well as the sexual assaults, and that's all funded through DHHS, and as a result, why not take an opportunity to bring back the money to Macomb? We're one of the few prosecuting offices that are actually having this program. So I'm hoping, based on the amount of individuals that are in the unit, together with the individuals that we've already started billing with and the new talent that we brought aboard with your help and assistance, that we'll be making those marks. So we're giving ourselves that ability to go ahead and tell you 450, because I think that's where we should be. If we go over, I guess we're doing even more, but that's about where we are based on the hours that were calculated, because we had to calculate what the expectations could be. So to your point, it would be an additional $450,000.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Seeing no other speakers, we have a motion in support. Please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Agenda item D, additional funding for outside counsel Timothy S. Ferrand of Cummings, McClorey, Davis, and Acho, P.L.C., Whitmer versus Linderman et al., 6th Judicial Court of Oakland County, case number 2022-193498-CZ, in the amount of $47,236.10. I need a motion to recommend this to full board.
Motion to move to full board, Van Sickle.
We have a motion by Commissioner Van Sickle, supported by Commissioner Farrington. Prosecuting Attorney Lucido, you're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. As you recall, I had asked for a little bit more money than $10,000 because of the billing rate, as well as what we didn't expect. We didn't expect the pieces to move so quickly from the Court of Appeals, as well as now Oakland County making that ruling. So as a result, the judge has instructed the lawyers in the Oakland County matter to have a scheduling order, as well as present briefs on the issue, as well as then we will have you respond very briefly, as well as we will target a date sometime down in the future. So I had a letter from the attorney who indicated to me that, and also through Mr. Smeagol from Finance, that we've already exhausted the $10,000. We owe him some money right now, and you better be asking for a couple more bucks to get you through. That's why I'm here.
I have a question here from Commissioner Kleinfeld, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the first thing is the board did give you 10,000, and you already exceeded that, correct?
That is correct.
So I'm not sure exactly, I mean, how that works if you are given an allotted amount and you, I mean, did Mr. Ferrand know going in that that was your allotted amount and that you were not to exceed that until the board gave you more money for this?
Well, yes, he did, and he actually got a letter back from myself indicating that, and as a result of that letter, it prompted me to start the process of coming to the board. But in the meantime, that order came down from the judge, and rather than leave me hanging, he continued to do the work. So,
Okay, so we discussed at the last meeting when the 10,000 was given to you. Obviously, some of us have issues with the whole premise to begin with, but there were two things. The first was you had indicated that if there are laws on the books, you're going to prosecute those. But you do show prosecutorial discretion. I know that because we got rid of those bank accounts for the seizure of the vehicles and the DUI accounts. So you do, on occasion, exercise discretion, correct?
for the things you're speaking of outside the scope of the law, those are not mandates. Those are not laws that are mandated by the legislature and signed by the governor. I mean, an oath in office is to uphold the laws of the state of Michigan. Unfortunately, I can't pick and choose a law. Now,
Okay.
somebody may argue, and I think that that's where I think you're going. I would appreciate the fact that if a police officer brings in a warrant or wants a warrant signed by the office of the prosecutor, there is a protocol, which is, are the elements of the crime established? Do we have, based on all the evidence, a higher probability or not than a conviction? There's minimal discretion about if it's meeting the elements of the law that we have to bring. As far as the charging, as far as the plea dispositions, there's much discretion.
Okay, and then the other thing that we discussed at the last meeting when this came up was there are several prosecutors that were named in this, correct? We asked about the idea of you guys collaborating and choosing one attorney to save money as opposed to each individual one having their own attorney in this case. Did that discussion take place?
It did. Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Ferrand's office is also representing another prosecutor from the west side of the state. However, the rest of them, the other 11, have chosen to go a different path. I mean, you can't force somebody to take the
So
representation.
are you expecting legal bills from Mr. Ferrand to be double what's in front of us then?
I don't know what I can expect. All I can expect is him to at least cover this case in the best possible way and under the law that he has.
Okay. Obviously, philosophically, I mean, it's a 1931 law, and the only reason it's still on the books is because everybody thought it was protected under the Constitution because of Roe. That's the only reason that that law is still on the books. So obviously, this would be a no for me, but if you were going to move forward, I'd really like the prosecutors to get together and have one attorney moving forward. I don't see individual counties putting out that kind of money. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Kleinfeld. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Oops. If I recall correctly, Mr. Prosecutor, when you originally brought this request to us, you indicated that there could be, and most likely would be, additional funding required to pursue it. The board set the $10,000 limit, and if you go back and check the record, I think what it... Could you tell Candace to wait? If you go back and check the record, I think I indicated at that time, that was almost a guarantee. It was gonna happen. You can't accomplish anything of this magnitude in the legal world, and you know that better than I do, for $10,000. So my colleagues need to be prepared that, as you've indicated, this may not be the end of funding for this lawsuit. So I just want to go back on record and say again, you forewarned us. So I don't, I don't know how different it gets than that. Do I agree with it? That's not the issue. The issue is you did forewarn us that this would cost more than $10K. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to piggyback on my fellow commissioner, in terms of time frame, do you have any sort of window of time for this? Because as most of us know, there's probably going to be a ballot proposal in November, and I'm wondering what effect that could have on this.
Great question. If I noticed when I was in the legislature, how they punted and let it go to a ballot because they didn't want to vote on anything, it's more probable than not that even with the scheduling order of the Oakland County judge, that they still have to make a decision, and that decision could come months. By then, they would know whether or not it's on the ballot and whether or not the people of the state of Michigan can change the law without the need of their legislators. And I know that Commissioner Kraft, you're very astute to the fact of how the legislator operates and how slowly things get progressively done. In this case here, we either go change the law from 1931 or we wait for the ballot to go down, one or the other. The court system shouldn't be interfering with the legislative system. That's just my opinion. They should allow the legislature to do their job as a separate and distinct branch of government, make the laws of this state that need to be upheld, and the courts should enforce those laws, which is the judiciary function. Those are the roles that I remember in some of my government classes. I would hope that they would follow those same laws today.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Matuzik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is not a question, this is a statement. I really feel like the taxpayers are getting ripped off here because the prosecuting attorney and corporation counsel can't work together. And we're being asked to spend more money on something that, to me, didn't need to be spent on. And when the next budget comes, there better be a whole big line item for Mr. Lucido's private attorneys, because this is just going to keep going on and on and on. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Lucido, would you, the short version,
Sure.
give us an overview of this particular case and what this has come to and how it's come about? Just a short version.
I'm going to do the best I can. The governor, I guess proactively, took an approach to say, I'm going to sue 13 prosecutors, and I'm going to go forward with it to invoke the fact that they should not uphold the law. And the Attorney General, who represents the governor in the suit, their office had filed a lawsuit in Oakland County. I don't practice in Oakland County. I can't. I don't live in Oakland County. I live here in Macomb. I was party suit in this lawsuit. And there's a lot of legal issues that I could be bringing to you if you had that. But it didn't. We said we just want a motion to dismiss, and we gave no answer in the lawsuit. And we brought the motion based upon the fact that it's not proper jurisdiction, a lot of legal issues. And as a result, this other thing that happened in the Court of Appeals, we didn't see that coming either. Now it's up to the Supreme Court, and down here is where the stay is in place. For how long? I don't know. And if I did get a case, and that's the big if a police department actually brought us a case, I've got to know what rights and duties and responsibilities I have in this office of which I took an oath. And I'm doing the best I damn as can. Open mind, the issue is not germane. It is whether or not I took an oath to uphold the law, and whether I'm going to uphold the law, that's the issue.
So this is very controversial, as we all know. So I guess my next question would be, and I guess it's a supposition on my part in asking you this. So are you vigorously looking to uphold this, or are you waiting for a police department to come forward and say, Mr.
Right.
Lucido, okay, that's what you're
I
waiting?
don't investigate cases. So to be very brief, I don't investigate cases. The police go out and seek out all the evidence to bring to the prosecutor's office. So they would have to have a caller call in and said somebody's out there breaking the law. They would have to have the written statements or oral statements that are presented to them to investigate. And then only after they have a case do they present it to the prosecutor's office if they feel the need to prosecute that case in their local jurisdiction or within the county sheriff.
So having brought this case, or having this other 11 prosecutors that have one attorney, whatever the case may be, so we go into court, and I'm going to use a win-loss statement. So they win us in court. Does that include you? They lose us in court. Does that include you? You're looking for your own attorney to represent you, but if they win, it's a mute thing. Everybody's won. Is that correct?
If they say the law has to be upheld until the legislature makes a decision, that affects everyone in the state, not just the ones that were sued, all prosecutors.
So why would you be looking, why wouldn't you just sit back and say, let's wait and see what happens?
Because right now, you have to assert your rights or you lose your rights. And there's a legal responsibility. And I know if Mr. Webster was here, the board's attorney, he would be saying precisely the point why you preserve the rights as the prosecutor. And we are asking to dismiss us out of this and let them go forward whatever they want to do. That is our position here in Macomb County. We shouldn't have been sued.
So you're looking for a dismissal?
Absolutely.
Okay, you've answered my questions. Any other commissioners have any questions? Well, we have a motion and support. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-5. Commissioners Haw, Kleinfeld, Matusek, Wallace, and Song voting no.
May I have that count again?
7-5.
And can I have the names again?
Sure.
Because I didn't get a thing up on my thing to vote on. My vote was no.
Okay. It came up yes. I'll change it. So
cha-
it fails 6-6. Do you want me to read the no's again?
Yes.
Commissioners Haw, Kleinfeld, Matusek, Romano, Wallace, and Song voting no.
Thank you. Item 7, Public Service Department recommendation. That's Mr. Farrington. I concede. Is that yours? Oh, I got 6E. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Mr. Lucido, don't leave. Outside counsel, Timothy S. Ferrand, Cummings, McClorey, Davis, and Echo, P.L.C., Rideout versus Lucido, et al., USDC, ED, Michigan number 2-22, CV 11597, up to $35,000. Don Ferrand, Chief Assistant Prosecuting Attorney. Mr. Ferrand, if he's here. If not, Mr. Lucido, you're up. I need a motion to recommend this to full board and support.
Thank you, Commissioners and Mr. Chairman.
Hold on. I need a motion and support.
So moved.
Support Van Sickle.
It's been moved by Commissioner Mai, supported by Commissioner Van Sickle. I'm sorry, Commissioner Song. Go ahead, Mr. Prosecutor.
Thank you. Again, as a prosecutor, there is a degree of what's called immunity for the actions that you are doing in good faith. And in this case here, Mr. Rideout was charged back in July of 2020. I wasn't even here when he was charged. And it's interesting, as a result of those charges and the cases being bound over to Macomb County Circuit Court, Mr. Rideout's case was dismissed at an evidentiary hearing. Mr. Rideout determined that he needed to sue, and he did. He, in fact, sued me, and he sued 3 other prosecutors that are in my office. The interesting part about it is, I haven't been served yet, but if I will, I told Mr. Ferrand, you know, here's the story. This is a case in federal court. Whether I get served or not, I'm going to need a lawyer to go ahead and, again, protect the rights and responsibilities and duties of the prosecutor. You know, there's law that indicates that I'm entitled to a lawyer, and since my corporation counsel and I have, at this point, he refused to represent me, and to your point, thank you, Commissioner Matuzik, I appreciate that. Look, I'm coming to the board. It's under the law. I have a right to be before this board if I don't have representation. Otherwise, I'd have to sue the board and the county for enforcement of the provisions of the law and the charter. And I don't think that's a good idea either, unless things don't go right. Then I have no choice. But in reference to this, I may never get served. I will be zealously telling my attorney to ask for a Rule 11 sanctions, which means all cost attorney fees as well as sanctions against the lawyer for bringing this case. I see no grounds for this case. However, I think they used to say $125 in an attitude gets you in court. It's a hell of a lot more when you file in federal court.
Thank you, Mr. Lucido. So that for those, not all the commissioners are here at the time. This is regarding the Shelby 5 and the disturbance they caused, and they were locked up for it, and an individual thought he was imprisoned improperly or whatever the case may be. And Mr. Lucido wasn't even available at that time, was our previous prosecutor, just so that you commissioners know what it is. We have some speakers here. Commissioner Kleinfeld, please.
Thank you. I would like John Shepka and Steve, if you could come up for, I have a couple questions.
Where do you see Steve?
Finance.
Where do you see him?
Right there? That's Steve.
That's
Yes. Okay, so according to your memo, you agree that the representation under this particular situation is warranted?
Correct.
Okay, and you believe there is a duty for the county to provide that representation?
Under statute, yes.
Okay, so, and according to your memo, you're saying to the board, we should be providing this representation?
The statute, MCL 49.73, actually creates a duty for the board. It's not really a discretionary matter for the board. The only discretion the board has is to fix what the board believes is a fair compensation.
Okay, so my only concern, because I read your memo last, was the motion was to approve, and the funding was available in the county's general liability fund. And my concern was that the request didn't come basically from Hackle's office, and the general liability fund doesn't fall under Lucido's office. So I just wanted to make sure, clear speaking to you, that and the reason I called Steve up is that we're not going to get into the situation like we did with Eric Smith, where the board approves an attorney and then finance says, yeah, we're not going to pay him. So we don't have that problem here, correct?
No, we excuse me, we do not have that problem. Mr. Smith, if you'll recall, he ran out lawyered up first, and then after X number of months, presented a bill to the board. There's no underlying contract. There's no underlying approval by the commission. We don't have that situation here. Despite my feelings on a lot of issues, this is an appropriate expenditure of funds. It is a duty of the commission per statute. My office has actually been working back channels to make this disappear without anybody ever being served. And I've talked to Mr. Ferrand about this as a matter of mutual defense. We're all on the same side. My office is representing the 3 assistant prosecuting attorneys. All prosecuting attorneys involved enjoy absolute prosecutorial immunity in this case. That is unquestioned. It is without condition. It is without exception. So long as they're acting in a prosecutorial fashion, they are immune. Beyond that, the complaint is probably the worst written thing I've ever read from an attorney. The back channel communications we've been having with Plains Counsel is if this goes forward and any of the Macomb individuals are served, we'll be having press conferences using the I word, the incompetent word, and be filing complaints with the bar.
And I agreed with you 100% when I read this, that he just had a right to an attorney in it.
Yes.
My concern was, and even though Prosecutor Smith lawyered up first and came to the board, this case, the money was coming out of a fund that isn't in the prosecutor's office. So I wanted to make sure administration's on the same page, because that could happen again in a future case where you don't necessarily take the same position.
Now, we can't pick and choose positions. This is appropriate. The money for outside counsel always comes from that fund.
Okay.
It never comes out of my budget. I don't have a line item for outside counsel.
No, but there could be arguments over whether outside counsel is warranted in the future, even out of that particular fund. So there could be a time where administration says, this doesn't fall under those statutes. But this one isn't of question, and that's what I just wanted to make sure, because it wasn't coming from administration.
Now, this is appropriate.
Okay.
The statute provides that if the countywide elected official, including the prosecutor, is a defendant in a civil action, Mr. Lucido is a defendant, this is a civil action, that makes the statute appropriate and applicable.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. As we all know, as I said, Prosecutor Lucido wasn't even available, wasn't even around at the time, and yet he was named in the lawsuit. So I guess, as Counselor Shapka said, he's entitled to the outside counsel. Okay, we have a motion and support. If you would please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. Thank you, Prosecutor. I'm going to turn this over to Public Service Department. Mr. Farrington, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Romano. At this point, we're going to take up 7A and 7B. This is the cost share agreement with the City of Sterling Heights. There's no cost to the county. This is for signal maintenance. If I can have a motion, recommend full board 7A and 7B combined.
So, support, Saul.
Moved by Wallace, supported by Song. Thank you very much. And welcome, Scott, once again.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yes, requesting the approval of the cost share agreement outlining the cost participation between the City of Sterling Heights and the Macomb County Department of Roads for the maintenance of the signal on Riverland Drive, both west and east of the Clinton River, at an estimated cost of $3,000 annually and at no cost to the Department of Roads.
Thank you very much. Seeing no speakers, we do have a motion and support. Please vote.
Romano votes yes on a blank screen.
Motion passes 12-0.
I think there's a joke there somewhere. But next item on the agenda is 7C, cost share agreement with the Village of Romeo, Bruce Township, Armada Township. This is the Powell Road Rehabilitation. If I can have a motion to recommend to full board. Moved by Wallace, support by Nard. Scott?
Requesting the approval of the cost share agreement outlining the cost participation between the Village of Romeo, Bruce Township, and Armada Township and the Macomb County Department of Roads for the rehabilitation of Powell Road from 32 Mile Road to just south of 33 Mile Road at a total project cost of $1,948,595 with funding available in the fiscal year 2022 Department of Roads construction budget.
Once again, seeing no speakers, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. This time I'd like to bring up 7D, E, and F. These are maintenance agreements. The first one with Madison Heights for winter maintenance for Dequindre Road. The second one, City of Sterling Heights, the primary roads mowing, sweeping services. And the third one, City of Warren, winter maintenance for Dequindre Road. I'd like to have a motion to bring all three of them to the full board.
Motion by Romano.
Support Van Sickle. Motion by Romano, support by Van Sickle. Thank you very much, Scott.
Yes, thank you again. Requesting the approval of the contract with the three aforementioned cities to provide winter maintenance on Dequindre Road from 8 Mile to 10 Mile in the city of Warren, and for mowing and sweeping services in the city of Sterling Heights, as well as Madison Heights, in the amounts of, for the timeline between fiscal year beginning of October 1, 2022 through September 30th of 2027 at a total cost of $12,500 for the city of Warren, and for 10/1/2022 to 9/30/2024 at a cost of $68,300 for the city of Sterling Heights, and from 10/1/2022 to 9/30/2027 at a cost of $28,982.10 for the city of Madison Heights.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair Song has a question.
Thank you, Chair. How many miles is the Sterling Heights one, did you say?
I believe that this is, let me see here. It's within all the primary roads owned and operated by the county and the city of Sterling Heights. I don't have that exact figure, but
Okay.
the cities generally operate the odd number mile roads, while the county operates the even number ones. And then there are some differences in the north-south. So Dequindre Road, Shaner, Hayes are.
I'm just trying to understand the cost difference for the city of Warren and Sterling Heights. So with Warren, it's from 8 Mile to 10 Mile, and the county's cost is $12,500. So the county's paying the city that amount to maintain it, and what exactly does winter maintenance entail?
Basically the plowing and salting. It could just be that the city of Warren has fewer county-owned roads through their jurisdiction of the city of Warren.
Well, this maintenance agreement is just from 8 Mile to 10 Mile, correct?
That one is specific to Dequindre Road.
So, right, from Dequindre Road, from 8 to 10 miles. So
Correct.
from 10 to whatever other mile will be the county's responsibility?
Without having the map in front of me to
Okay, got
understand
it.
the
So
jurisdiction.
Madison Heights is, south of 10 Mile will be the city of Warren's responsibility, and then north of 10 Mile will be Madison Heights, right? So that's the first maintenance agreement.
I believe that to be correct, yes.
All right, so my question regarding that whole Dequindre stretch, when is that road going to be fixed? Because it's in really bad condition.
So we do have a project that is going to be happening this year on Dequindre from 696 to just south of 12 Mile. It's going to involve some pavement removal and patching. We are currently in the midst of completing a countywide corridors of significance study, which will help to identify some of the larger long-term projects that require heavier investment in them. Not only areas that need to be widened for capacity for new development, but also those that have already been widened that have reached kind of the end of their expectant life. So we hope to have some more concrete results on those and being able to develop plans moving forward for those corridors probably by the beginning of next year.
Okay, so I saw the project that was going to go up to 12 Mile that you mentioned, but there's no plans to do anything north of 12 Mile to that 14 Mile stretch.
Not currently on the books. That what you're seeing is part of our countywide pavement preservation program, where we have a fixed dollar amount that we put towards all the local roads throughout the county. So we have probably at least another dozen to 20 locations throughout the county that we kind of spread that funding across.
Okay, so when this maintenance agreement goes into effect, and you have this pave and restoration program as well, and if the roads are paved and then salted, won't that just result in more potholes and damage to the road? Or is there, I guess, a certain period of time where the maintenance doesn't include being like salted? So for example, like 13 Mile was recently repaved. And so this past winter, that stretch of the road wasn't salted to maintain the integrity of the road.
I can't speak to 13 Mile because I believe that is one of the city operated jurisdictional roads.
I'm just using that as an example. Because if these maintenance agreements are left to the cities, but then the county is the one repairing the road and then the cities are maintaining it, is there anything in these agreements that indicate that these roads that are repaved would be preserved during maintenance?
I believe that with regard to like 13 Mile, for example, that being that is city-owned and operated, that would not qualify for our preservation program because we don't have jurisdiction over that road. But as a matter of rule, we generally will do the general maintenance operations for all of the county-owned roads that we have, which is plowing and salting. Obviously, what we're planning to do with that stretch from 696 to 12 Mile, it's not intended to be a full-blown rehabilitation by any means. It's mainly just to address some of the more severe areas where we have some major faulting of the pavement or potholes, with the knowledge that we are moving forward with a larger corridors of significant study. And that's mainly because the funding that we do get through the federal government for larger capacity projects like that, to do a single mile of road in that regard would consume almost half of the budget that we get for 1 year. So we need to be a little bit more discreet about how we make those investments and making sure that we're applying it across all the proper variables with pavement condition, life of the existing pavement, traffic counts, all those various factors.
Do you do cost sharing agreements with the cities for a road like Dequindre?
For this particular one, we are doing a cost share. Typically, when it comes to the pavement preservation program, that is 100% county funded, but because of the large size of this one, we did go into with the city of Warren for a cost share agreement on this particular section, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Song. Seeing no other speakers, we have motion support for 7D, E, and F combined. Please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you very much. And while that concludes Section 7, I do have an additional item that I've asked Scott to at least speak on. Each of you have a package in front of you. It is not on the agenda, so we cannot vote on it, but I wanted him to speak on it because he's going to be requesting Chair Brown to put it on the full board agenda. So this is regarding the Superior Contracting Group. Scott, if you can tell us about it.
So yes, this is regarding a recent bid that we just opened up last week. Part of our normal standard contracts that we do countywide. I was just a little late in the game and getting on the agenda, but looking to award the bid for that contract with Superior Contracting Group for a culvert replacement project on Wolcott Road over the Tupper Brook Drain up in Armada Township at a cost of $464,777.75 with funding available in the fiscal 2022 Department of Roads budget.
And we don't have an agenda item here, so if you can just raise your hand. Chairman Brown.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this up, Mr. Chairman. Is this part of the bridge funding we just recently received? Is that part of the funding? There was an announcement recently about bridge program, 25 bridges being replaced. Is this part of that package?
This was a separate package. This project was actually in the design works back last year. But due to some other issues, it was kind of pushed until this year to be able to get it out for bid. So this is part of what the county has as large culvert replacement funds as a annual line item.
Very good. Well, I support, there are many bridges out, and it's hard to keep up with them all. I'm glad to see the department launching a new initiative with the additional money received, plus this ongoing funding. So I'll support this at full board. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Question, Scott. You said this comes from a fund for large culverts. What other projects being pushed aside so that this one go in front of the line?
Could you repeat that? I couldn't.
Yeah, you'd mentioned just now that the funding comes from a line item for large culverts. What other one is next in line that's being pushed aside for this one?
The line item is typically for kind of what I'll call like an emergency case. It's generally just enough to replace a single culvert. We are also in the process, as I indicated with the corridors of significance study, we are also in the process of having all of the culverts within the county inventoried, which will be beginning within the next month or so. We have 530 plus culverts that we're responsible for. So as soon as we get that inventory completed with the initial assessments done, we can look at prioritizing those and developing a plan and moving forward with replacement of those.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Scott. Just a general question on our construction cost overages. I just read an article in the Detroit News that there's a bridge up in my district that was originally estimated at $2 million and ended up at $3.1 million. That's a huge difference. What are we doing in terms of bringing that difference to the board for approval? I know we've talked about this before. Usually, if it's within a certain threshold, it's fine. It doesn't come to us. It just gets taken care of. But what happens when it gets over that? Because it seems to be happening more and more with a lot of these projects now, just because of material costs and things like that.
Right. So, yeah, I think the majority of the projects that we've had now, because of the participation that we get from the federal government, the amount that does come to the county is still very small in comparison. Many times when those overages are reported, they're reported in terms of percentage, which, on a job that might be a couple $100,000 does not translate to an exceeding amount of money. But in the case that you mentioned with the bridge that was $2 million that now jumped to $3 million, that's just something that we are seeing in the current industry, and we are building into those budget estimates for future bridges as an inflationary factor, and taking into account with the unit prices that we estimate with those projects moving forward.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So, Scott, following up on Commissioner Kraft's question, isn't the limit 10% difference? If it goes over 10%, you're supposed to come back to the board?
I believe it's got to be, I think it's with regard to the county's participation amount, if it's over a certain percentage.
If you could get that with the staff and make sure all the commissioners are aware of it, that'd be appreciated. Commissioner Hall, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll prelude my comments with saying I'm going to vote to approve this, but the issue of supply chain, resources, headcount, I think is going to be in our environment at least throughout this budgetary year. This one is an exception, but you had indicated you had previously had worked on it. There were issues with it, had to be postponed, and now we're reacting. I just think as a general statement, seeking forgiveness instead of approval is not going to be the operating process moving forward this year. I think Commissioner Matuzak has probably brought that up about a half a dozen times. So heads up, you have my support on this one. There's been a lot of questions asked here already. There'll be more coming if we get more issues like this moving down the pike.
No, thank you, Commissioner. And again, this project was budgeted, so it wasn't anything that was being introduced as additional or extra monies to the county in this regard. the issues that were experienced were design related and obtaining permits and delays in that nature. So we can only move as fast as we can move before other agencies and entities kind of take over as far as the scheduling and when these projects can be bid and let.
That's the good news is it was budgeted. I'm talking about those that currently aren't or aren't foreseen moving forward to come back in and say, we need what, $464,000 to be placed on Thursday's agenda. Again, it's not better to seek forgiveness than approval. So that.
Well, and again, the only reason that this is being asked or brought up at this time is because we had initially written this contract so that the contractor could have the option of either starting the project this year or doing it next year. So it could have waited until, it could, not that it could have waited, but it was thought that it was going to be on a future council meeting here. But the fact that the contractor came to us and said that they had the opportunity to get the culvert that we're talking about here ordered at a sooner time frame means that we needed to kind of move this up the scale as far as timeline. They cannot order they typically will not order the components until we have an agreement in place with them to get that done. So generally what we've been seeing, though, again, talking about those materials, which is why we adjusted the schedule to allow them to complete this next year, we've been seeing 18 weeks to get something like a box culvert ordered. However, in this case, we were fortunate that the contractor was able to get it sooner, much sooner. So in the effort to try and get this project done this year as opposed to waiting to next year over another winter season, that's the reason why this is being brought up at this point. We just opened the bids.
I applaud your initiative on trying to get it done this year. That's not the issue. I'm talking about moving forward with projects, and you can pass it on to Brian, with projects of this magnitude, if not larger, that become emergency situations instead of the norm. That's what I'm looking at here.
No, and I just wanted to clarify, this wasn't an emergency situation. It was just that, you know, if I spoke and indicated that the line item that this money was taken from, we carry that year to year, and that's where we had planned and pulled that funding from. But this was a planned project for some time, and it's just based on the timeline of how the events took place that, you know, we're bringing this to you now.
Thank you.
So,
thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Van Sickle?
Thank you, Chair. A little off topic, but you mentioned there's 500 plus, I forget the exact number, culverts in the county. Those are culverts that go across roads as opposed to along roads?
Correct. These would be culverts that do cross one of the county primary roads. We're not talking about driveway culverts for approaches or anything like that.
And so these are only across the roads the county's responsible for?
Correct.
And we're responsible for maybe half of the major roads, so there's maybe another 500 that the locals jurisdictions? That's a guess.
We could say that, sure.
Okay, somewhere in there. Okay, just wanted to, and will these be on the GIS map?
Yes, that is the intent, is for them
Okay.
to make their way up there.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you. Commissioner Romano?
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Scott.
Hi there.
Scott, this is more of a information question more than anything. I'm looking at this, the local preference percentage amount. You familiar with that? Up to 50,000, 5, up to 50 to 200, 3. And
Yes.
what is that?
I believe that was an initiative that was brought forth by the commissioners to have a local-based preference involved in county bid contracts to award a credit, if you will, for bids over a certain amount to local-based contractors.
You're saying above and beyond the actual estimated amount? I don't understand. This is local preference percentage contract amount. This is up to 50,000, 5, 50 to 200,000, 3, and then 200,000 and over 1. That's on, well, I can't even tell you what page it is. It says Macomb County base preference. And I'm trying to figure out what it says. Local preference percentage credit from the following allowable table will be applied to the bid of any county-based enterprise. This credit will be subtracted from the bid of the county-based enterprise. So I don't understand it. Maybe you could explain it if you know it.
So basically, meaning that if you have two contractors that have bid on a project, and let's say they both bid the exact same amount, a contractor that is based in Macomb County would receive in this case, a 1% credit in the sense of their bid would be lower by 1%, thus awarding them the contract, but then they would be paid at the unit prices that they originally bid.
I got it. Okay, I got it. Thanks, Scott. Thank you, Chair. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. So I listened to Commissioner Kraft's question, and I listened very carefully to your answer, and I didn't hear the answer to his question. He's talking about there was a $2 million project that turned into a $3 million, and this has come up a number of times at this table with regard to change orders. I don't see change orders coming from your department on all of these projects. And I don't know how much like Hayes from 10 to 11 ended up costing, but I do know there wasn't an original plan, I believe, to do Frazo down to 10 Mile a complete pave, but I think they realized the condition of the road was such that they had to. That's a change in the project that in my opinion would have changed the cost of it significantly. I might be wrong because I don't know the answer to that. What he's asking is, when are you going to start bringing change orders to the board when they're required?
We do bring them when it comes up. Many times when we do have, say, on a project, if there is an extra item or something that goes over what the intended or what the bid quantity or amount was, oftentimes we can balance that off with other items that were, say, under, for example. Thus, the net change to the contract modification is less than the percentage that would be required to bring it before the board.
I think what you're saying is if I have Project A and Project B comes in under budget, we'll take that money and apply it to Project A. That doesn't change the fact that Project A went over.
No, I'm saying within a single project, if the amount is, if there is a pay item or something that goes over, many times we will balance that off with other items within that project that will help to net that difference.
Okay, within that project.
Correct.
Because what I'm thinking, you know what we've never had, and I think I'd like to see in the future is, at the end of the year, a list of the projects, the amount that we approved, and the final cost of the project after it was done, so that we get an idea of how these are actually. It's not your fault. You guys don't control the cost of supplies and things, so I'm not placing any blame.
Sure.
But I am realizing, because it's not just this department, there are other departments where there's been a long history of things that are supposed to come to us that weren't coming to us, and I know the finance department has worked to fix a lot of those. But I think I would like to see that with regard to roads projects. What is it that we go in anticipating it to be, and what was the final cost at the end? So I don't know if you can compile something like that, if maybe work with our staff to figure out exactly what that is. But I think that would be very valuable for us on a yearly basis to look at these to see what's happening with them.
I can certainly make a note of it and look into it.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, I appreciate the presentation, Scott, and
Sure.
If Chair Brown puts that on the agenda, it'll be so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to item 8, resolutions, to discuss resolution 2022-8648. This is opposing the Department of Labor proposed rules for Macomb St. Clair workforce. Do we have a motion recommend full board?
Matuzik moves.
It's moved by Commissioner Matuzik, supported by Commissioner Nard. Justin L. Igo. Very good. Welcome, Justin.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the resolution I have before... That one? Yep. Awesome, thank you. Obviously my first time here, sorry. So, the resolution I have before you today is asking for your opposition to some rules released by the U.S. Department of Labor. In these proposed rules, staffing for one of our core programs, the Wagner-Pizer Employment Services, would be required to shift from locally contracted staff to state staff. Now, the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, who's also opposed to these rules, has stated that they would only be able to provide about 60% as much staffing as we have now. So we're talking about a situation where we go from about 20 across our 5 centers in Macomb and St. Clair to about 12. So of course that's fewer staff to help people with their resume and job search workshops and help employers with job fairs and so forth. So it's hard to see where this helps Macomb County. So that's the reason I'm here before you today, asking you to consider this resolution opposing these rules. Any questions?
Commissioner Matuzik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of questions. I'm a firm believer in local control at all levels. I think we probably do a better job. But when you're talking about the reduction in staff, even it's not as though we're taking the same amount of staff locally and moving them to the state. There's an actual net reduction.
Correct.
Is there also a net reduction in money?
No, that's assuming the same amount of money, instead of going allocated locally to us, stays in Lansing. And that 60% number is directly from Labor and Economic Opportunity. So they estimate it'll be a pretty serious reduction in staffing.
What are they doing with the money?
I wish I could answer that. I don't know. But that was their answer to us when we said, well, take the same amount of money, run it through your HR system, central service costs, all those things. And they said, well, we'd have to have some staff in Lansing to administer the program, because now they're running a program, right, from Lansing as opposed to locally. And that's the number they gave us. They said assume about 60%.
Interesting. I'm clearly in favor of your resolution because I think this is a silly idea. I want to shift the subject just slightly. The Macomb St. Clair Workforce Development Agency, I think, has done a very poor job in terms of being able to work with folks clearing up their records, their criminal records. Other places around us have done a much better job, including fairs and public activities where people can come in with their documents. Having a criminal record, even for minor offenses, is sometimes really detrimental to getting a job. And in Macomb and St. Clair, we have done, in my opinion, a very poor job of that, and I would like to see that beefed up.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How you doing?
Good.
So this is a proposed rule change. I'm guessing since it's a rule change, it would be from within the Department of Labor itself. They would make that decision. There's no other outside bodies that would be making that decision, correct?
That's correct.
Do you have a time frame for when this would happen, could happen?
So there was a public comment period that recently closed. We've heard estimates from roughly 5 to 6 months for them to formulate response to that comments, and then they would release or update final rules regarding this. So I don't have an exact timeline.
Do you have a list or a number of other counties that are doing a resolution like this or have approved one, or is this just beginning right now?
So I know Oakland County's passed one and St. Clair has passed one. Wayne County is working its way through one, but I would assume most Michigan Works agencies and even at the state level are working to publicly oppose this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chairman Brown.
If this happens, what's the effect on the ground?
The ultimate effect on the ground is just fewer staff that we have. So this is getting into some technical points, but Wagner-Pizer are very specific services that only that program can do. So it's not like I can shift staff from my other programs and other grants to cover the gap. So the most common one is the work registration requirement. When someone applies for unemployment insurance, they're required by state law to come to a Michigan Works agency to register for work, and be available for work. Some other related activities can be just your basic sit down with someone, review your resume, also helping with just like the job matching, sending out, job openings. This employer said we have these openings, so we can help kind of facilitate those connections. Those are specific to Wagner-Peiser. So that's where we would get hurt because I can't shift other staff to fill the gap.
So the people that verify whether they're looking for unemployment while they're unemployed is being shorted.
The part to register them for work, to confirm that they are looking for work is still a UI requirement because they have to submit job search information to the Unemployment Insurance Agency. But that initial step to be registered for work and kind of in our, let's say, pool of job applicants would be harder.
Given all the huge amount of fraud in unemployment insurance over COVID, you think they'd want more staff to be paying attention to things than less, given what happened? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm voting in support of this.
Thank you.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon.
Hello.
If we pass this resolution, which I assume we will, but would it be considered public comment that you said that public comment closed recently, or is it a different category of comment?
That's a different category. Those are comments specifically on the DOL website where people can post support, opposition, whatever they feel to it. So that's closed according to my understanding. If they end up modifying the rule, then they'd have to open it up again for comments on that.
So we're still within the time frame where our resolution would actually be able to be considered?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can still submit this as a opposed
Thank you.
opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Seeing no speakers, we do have a motion to recommend full board. A yes vote is opposing the Department of Labor proposed rules. Please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you very much. And Jason, thank you very much Justin, for coming in. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is correspondence. We have three of them: Charter Township of Washington, Charter Township of Washington on zoning, and the City of Sterling Heights. I'd like to take the three of them combined and make a motion to receive and file 9A through 9C.
Support
Van
Kleinfeld.
Sickle.
Moved by Wallace, support by Van Sickle. Any discussion?
Sure.
Oh, yes.
Just out
Commissioner
of
Hall.
curiosity, this notification, thank you, from Charter Township of Washington Zoning Board of Appeals Notice of Public Hearing, why are we getting that?
If Chairman Brown or staff could help me with this?
It's state law that requires due notification to the county. We used to have a planning board that used to review all the master plans around the county and just make sure all the parties are aware of what's happening that affect us.
Okay, thank you. Because I found strange because I looked at our ZBA notifications for their meeting on Tuesday and there's like 9. And I don't know that they ever sent anything to the county. It's irrelevant. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
At this point, we're on item 10, Commissioners' comments. Commissioner Walls.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a quick note, update you guys, because I always update you on track and field. I know how much you enjoy it. So we just got back from Junior Olympics in North Carolina, and I was hoping Commissioner Sabatini would be here because he does have 2 young ladies in his district, I believe, that are junior Olympians. One, I believe, got gold in the 3,000, so long distance. Another one got a bronze in steeplechase. It was her first time running this race because clearly at Mount Clemens we don't have steeple chasing things. So she just said that she could do it, and clearly she did it amazing. And in my district, I happen to have now the fastest sprinter in the state. So we have some pretty talented kids. I wish I could give you more of an update on other sports, but I only do track and field. So there you go. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Commissioner Wallace. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Many of you have seen on Channel 4 News the erosion issue on 13 Mile Road and Aaron Street in Roseville. Big sewer pipe collapsed, supposed to be not equal to the one that's currently taking place, but had that erosion not been discovered and presented and dealt with immediately, there was a good possibility we could have had a sinkhole on I-94 at Little Mac. So Candace called on a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, guess where I was, and wanted to know would we approve that as part of the Chapter 20 Drain Board so she could immediately move a team that was working on another project, I believe Freedom Hill, over to that site and start dealing with that situation. We were months away from a collapse on the expressway. So a lot of people are looking at how this happened, who was responsible for it, and how do we assure that these things don't happen in the future. So when we talk about infrastructure and need, this is a perfect example of a disaster that was averted. So I just wanted to report that. Thank you, Chair.
I appreciate the report, Commissioner. Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. That was in the back of my mind, and I came from taking care of my youngest granddaughter, and as I was just entering my house, my phone rang, and one of the citizens was calling. He said, there's water bubbling up in the middle of Malone Road in Harrison Township. And I thought, middle of the road? So I drove right over, which wasn't far from me, and there was water bubbling up from the middle of the road. He said, at that moment, Township Water Department gentleman was there and moving things around and making many phone calls. So I said, well, apparently you're good, you know what you're doing, and you don't need me here. So I left. Water was going all over, but not into the people's houses immediately there. And I asked the citizen the next day, he said, so when did the team get there? And he said, within the hour, less than an hour. They were there taking care of it. I did want to say that I went to a meeting in Harrison Township at the library several months ago, and I did not realize they were talking about many things, about the future, and but I did not realize that during COVID that the librarian staff, the directors and the staff and the workers, that they were essential workers. I just didn't realize it. I would drive by that library because I live right by there, and sometimes I'd say, what are all these cars here for? And so then I had a meeting with the director, and she explained people who needed services. But for a while, of course, nobody could go in, but they would meet them at the door, and people didn't have, they didn't have internet, they didn't have things that they needed, and they were really wonderful when I heard all the things they were helping people with, literally essential. Prescriptions, applications for work, faxing and stuff for their jobs. And then I talked to, in my area, the librarian for St. Clair Shores. She was doing the same thing. She said, I think all the librarians were in the county. And I said, I just didn't know. They were doing things for children, just wonderful, incredible. So I gave a tribute to the librarian in Harrison. I'm giving a tribute tonight to the librarian in St. Clair Shores, the directors. And we don't always realize how helpful and how professional and how great any number of entities are in our communities. And these people just did a wonderful job. I wanted to commend them and the other librarians, or the directors and their staff and the volunteers who help with many things. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Zinner. Commissioner Matuzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if we can get someone, our representative or whomever from Great Lakes Water, to talk about this break and the boil water advisory that was and wasn't and still is in some places, and what it all means. I think it would be great. All right. I think it would be great if we could put that that person on the agenda for a report. I was at a community.
Works out for full board is my goal.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was at the Quinn Road reunion on Saturday when all of this went down, and we had park workers running around, closing off the drinking fountains, trying to decide if people could still use the bathroom. We're making announcements about, it was pretty crazy for a while, and there's a lot of questions, and it would be great to have somebody. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Just to repeat, since the microphone wasn't on, the board chair is looking to have a representative there on county, on our board meeting on Thursday. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
I just want you all to know that I didn't have any low water pressure, and I didn't have to boil my water. And given the fact that if we get a gentle zephyr in East Point, my power goes out, it's just nice to not be part of something once in a while. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to give some kudos and some shout outs to our staff who put on the yoga at the Hill. In fact, the entire staff showed up. Laura brought her daughter. Crystal brought her daughter. Adriana brought her horse. No, she didn't. But we had about 300 people in attendance. I mean, it was really cool. And hopefully, from what all indications show, it's going to be even bigger next year. So hopefully we're all going to be around to take a look at that. So kudos to them. They did a great job. Congratulations to the staff. Thank you, Chair.
Fantastic. Commissioner Nard.
Yes, I just wanted to inform everybody, you may have heard it on the news, that Harvest Ministries Church, they service a lot of people. He was my volunteer of the year. Someone firebombed their supply of food and damaged everything at the church, so they are in need of volunteers and help. So if anybody knows of any type of service that they can offer to them, it would be greatly appreciated, and prayers. And then I also wanted to ask you to keep my family in prayer. I just found out that my nephew has been in a coma for a month now. He went to Mexico and had some type of fruit, didn't know he had diabetes. I guess the fruit turned into sugar, and it raised the sugar. He don't know this yet, but they had to cut off some of his toes, and now he's in this coma, and he has a lot of fluid on his lungs. It looks very bad, but we know prayer is powerful, so I'm asking everybody to keep us in prayer.
Thank you for those words, Commissioner. That's it for Commissioner's comments. At this point, we're on to item number 11, public participation. This is an opportunity for public participation for those who wish to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any issue. Seeing no one that wishes to speak, we're going to move on from public participation, go to closed session. Is our attorney here? Yeah, okay. We're entering closed session.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah.
Would you like to make a motion, Commissioner?
To enter closed session to discuss
support?
confidential attorney-client privilege memorandums.
Barb, throw him out, Barb. Throw him right out again.
Barb, if you can indicate a yay or nay.
Throw him out the door, Barb.
It's a friendly crowd.
Motion passes 12-0.